Chief hacking officer for the U.S. government.
That's the dumbest thing in security. It's dangling over there. Go help a brother out.
Hold on, I'll fix it. Ready?
Welcome to the Hashtime Show, your weekly source for cyber news and info. This is episode number 9. On today's show, Dave, Chris, and Jeff discuss cybersecurity tool development, what every InfoSec employee needs to know, and walk through the anatomy of a ransomware attack. Check us out online at hashtimeshow.com. And now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome back to the Hashtime Show. We're your weekly source for cybersecurity news and info. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Vincent. Sitting to my left is Dave Norland, and across the table, Jeff Marshall. Guys, episode number 9 is here, and we have the new podcast studio.
Yes.
Chris, I don't know if I can count that high.
I know we're getting close, right?
It's the best 9th episode we've ever done.
Well, guys, we appreciate you tuning back in. We've, as you can probably tell by our quality improvement here, we've set up a new podcast little studio using the Rodecaster Pro. This segment of the podcast brought to you by Guitar Center, where I buy all my shit at.
Can we say
we
that?
get money for that?
I should probably bleep Guitar Center and shit out.
I feel like I'm a part of NPR.
But it's a little bit closer. We're used to be echoing in a room.
I can't not speak in this voice.
Feel free to speak in whatever voice you choose.
Hi, guys.
All right, guys. On today's show, we're going to cover the hot news of the week for cybersecurity and talk about potentially some ransomware. So we'll see if we have time. We'll walk through the anatomy of ransomware. But before we get there, I wanted to jump into segment 1, getting to know you. This is our portion of the show where we get to know our hosts, specifically Dave and Jeff, because you don't really want to get to know me, or do you?
Nope.
Okay, so question number 1.
No, not really.
I'm kidding. No, I don't mean that.
Question number 1, guys. I wanted to ask you, what tool, and by tool I mean software, hardware, solution.
Oh, is that what you meant?
Yeah, that's what I mean. What tool is the industry lacking or needs improvement on? And I'm talking about InfoSec in general.
I think the answer is all of them.
Every tool.
What's the next question, Chris?
So when we look at like, the different SIM technologies and endpoints and email, we just went through internally here a big training and walked through everything. There's not one that's jumping out to you. I think everything needs to get better. That's the answer.
I think SIMs are very hard to configure and rightfully maintain that, I guess, idea of being difficult to configure and hard to set up and then hard to tune and hard to keep going at a constant rate, and just very difficult to find the expertise you need to make the most out of them. And that's like a continuing difficulty. And I think there's some ways you can streamline things, but for example, some will try to forward just the raw logs, and then it's up to the user to parse the logs, like your Splunks and Sumo Logics, and then others have this elaborate indexing and meta system like NetWitness. There's pros and cons to both methods, but they're both very difficult to kind of get your head around, difficult for organizations to adopt, but they're also increasingly necessary. So I don't know how you make that process better, but the fact that we have difficult onboarding sometimes, complicated setups, like that never seems to go away.
Yeah, that's part of why we kind of stay in business, right? Or MSSPs in general stay in business because customers need help configuring their SIM. Yeah. It's a big part of it.
Yeah, and it's not just SIMs. If you look, every tool out there, that's why, you take a step back and you look, and this is why it's great, to be in this world, in this day and age. There's so much funding and money out there, and, opportunities for people to build new companies and new tools and new technology. Lots of different. If you look just in the last month, all the purchases that have been made in cybersecurity organizations, it's because some people are doing some things the right way, but there's room to improve everywhere. The stat I saw at RSA conference this year was there's over 126, which is a weird number they throw out there, but over 126 endpoint vendors out there. How do you choose the right one? How do you pick the technology? There's a lot of these people out there who have preferences for vendors, right? But the reality is you got to pick the right technology with the right controls for your situation to lower your risk.
And then also, I think kind of on that note, we have a lot of different products that do different things, but very few vendors are kind of uniting them under the same framework. I think you have interesting offerings from people like Qualys who are kind of bundling a lot of these security governance and vulnerability management products all into the same framework. And I think that's really appealing for people to have kind of a one-stop shop for some of these solutions. And granted, not everybody's going to do the same thing equally well, and nobody's going to be an expert in everything. But I think if you can reduce the amount of time you spend having to deal with specific things with vendors, reduce the overall vendor crowd, and in a lot of big organizations, you can manage things a little bit easier.
Well, that's interesting. We looked at, we just recently looked at like the top 100 MSSPs and the SIM tools, and we look at it and some of, our most seasoned guys are looking at it going, that doesn't make any sense. And there's a lot of like confusion. I mean, I'm just imagining if I was a customer and I want to go out and evaluate, I got Gartner as a resource. I have some of these different G2 crowds, some of these different websites, but how do you know what tool or what company does and what that means?
I don't think you do. I think that's why you start to see a lot of customers and prospects looking for vendors. They're starting to go to these one-stop shop security solutions. I mean, even here at Data Shield, we're starting to embrace more services, things that are in our wheelhouse, but maybe we haven't done before, but things that we can still provide at a high level of proficiency. A couple of years ago, maybe it didn't make sense to do that, but as we realize that there's a lot of overlap and a lot of compatibility between the systems, there's no reason not to try to expand a little bit and provide more than just a single solution for a single problem. It's about kind of providing the suite of solutions. Now, whether they all tie into each other from the customer's perspective, maybe that doesn't matter, but it's oftentimes the security provider's responsibility to kind of make that happen.
Yeah, we had a customer the other day tell us that they have over 150 vendors in the IT space, and they have a goal to cut that down to 50. I mean, how do you take 150 vendors that provide your infrastructure and security technologies and cut it down to 50? I mean, there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of things that are out of your control. So finding a vendor who can do multiple things, they may not be able to do all those things equally as good as your current partners, but maybe you're okay with losing a little bit to have less people to talk to. Not necessarily the approach I would take, but it is what it is.
It's about dollars. I mean, if you can start to bundle some of these things together, then that reduces the number of sales you have to look at, the number of people that have to be tied up at legal. It's just a kind of a reduction of an increase in scope for maybe a few vendors, but a reduction in overall workload when it's just a single point for some of these larger requirements.
Yeah, I mean, this really reminds me, thinking about this, reducing your customer count. Tim Ferriss is a big advocate of that. He wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. He's very involved in the podcast community. And he said he had a supplement company way back when. His story was he fired, he had the 80-20, the Pareto rule on his customer account. He realized that, and you mentioned this the other day, Jeff, I remember it made me think of this when you said this. He said, 20% of his customers cause 80% of his problems.
Absolutely.
And then conversely, 20% of his customers generate 80% of his revenue. So he just stuck with those customers and fired the rest, and it made his life super easy. And so it's sort of interesting, it's taking the vendor approach, cutting it down. It's sort of in that same lines. We have to balance that, right? We want to grow our company, but at what, I guess, not just man-hour, not just cost, but like what intellectual cost, what kind of stress cost to the people that lead the organization.
Yeah, there's always challenges in growth, and, things have to change and processes have to enhance, and, it's hard sometimes for people to get their heads around doing that, especially when they have 150 vendors.
Right. I tell you what, guys, this new setup and how we're getting serious, this feels like a real show right now. Like this is like a real radio show.
I feel like the consequences just went way up.
It got deep.
Yep.
We went pretty deep with it.
We're serious now.
All right. Anything else to add on that, guys? Anything sticking? I think we kind of covered that in a generic, but
it feels weird to say people need to have fewer vendors as a vendor.
Right.
But it seems like the logical conclusion, because you have, 150 different endpoint solutions out there. And do they only do endpoint? I mean, are they leveraging anything else? You got to have, I feel like we're approaching the time in security where you have to offer a more holistic solution.
Comprehensive.
Yeah.
This makes me think a little bit, about the Mac kind of came back on and created a more comprehensive solution in the way that everything kind of worked out of the box. And,
Does it though?
well,
I see a lot of dongles floating around.
a lot of dongs floating around. I just mean from a standpoint. Can you shorten dongle to dongs? I don't think you can.
I don't know that you want to.
I don't think you're supposed to do that.
I am not calling mine that.
Max.
I just mean, I've built PCs and you bolt them together and things are supposed to work, but there's drivers and there's issues and
They almost always do.
yep, you typically do.
Stop knocking our Macs, Dave.
It's knocking our Macs, Dave. Come on, man.
Okay, sorry.
I'm a PC guy. We're both also PC
Don't
guys.
say that. Don't say that. Sit in front of a Mac.
Is that sacrilegious?
Yeah.
This segment of the show is the Mac versus PC debate.
Siri is listening.
Remember that time NPR had a debate about Macs and PCs?
I don't.
This is it right here.
Did they have a commercial on that too?
I think they did. What point is I making? I had a point. Maybe maybe I didn't. No, I think my point was.
I understand where you're going with it. There's like a single kind of unifying
like when you
idea behind something.
when you buy an iPhone or when you buy a iMac, you can't like load Linux. Well, maybe you can load Linux on it. You get what I'm saying? Like PCs, you can bolt together. This part, I can get RAM from this manufacturer. I can get an MSI board. I can get a different case. You can put together this solution. Whereas if you want to buy a Mac, you're very limited and it's more comprehensive and all inclusive.
Yeah.
And you do pay a premium for that with Mac. So is that the answer? If we go to
It's quality over quantity.
correct.
Yeah.
If we go to a security provider or a vendor standpoint where you have one vendor that has your SIM and your EDR and your email security or all those things, your AV, your firewall. Let's say they do everything. Does that become a premium or does that become a cost bundle? Do you guys think?
I mean, some of these things are so similar. Like look at vulnerability scanning and management and pen testing. Now, people will tell you those things are completely different. You can't have the same company do those because it's just a conflict of interest or the disciplines are so completely different. Well, really they're not. I mean, they're both looking at the same kinds of things in a lot of ways. There's very little reason that you couldn't have, in a hypothetical scenario, have a company do both or have a company do vulnerability management and MSSP services or MDR services. It's just kind of the natural extension of where we're going because there are just too many vendors out there. The space is too crowded and people will eventually get tired. There will be a backlash. I mean, already we have some customers coming to us and saying, we have a gigantic list of things that we need done. And thankfully, those customers trust us enough to say, what do you want to do on this list? And it's kind of put us in an interesting position of examining these exact types of things. Well, yeah, actually, we can do that. We have all the capability, all the know-how here. I mean, it's better for our customers to kind of spin up those additional programs and make that work because it provides a better solution,
Right. Okay. Well, in the interest of time, we could probably talk about this for a little while longer.
Yeah,
in the interest
good
of time,
topic.
We'll move on. So let's talk about question 2. Maybe we'll do the trailer for this one. I was thinking, or not, who cares? We'll see. I wanted to ask you guys, what skill or knowledge set does each kind of InfoSec employee need to know or develop?
I mean, I can answer that really quickly. I would just say security intuition.
Okay.
It is the hardest thing to find, and it is also, in my opinion, like the most important thing a security person can have.
What does that mean?
Well, I'll tell you, Chris. So I would say it's a combination of having seen a lot of things, which of course not everyone will be able to at the beginning of their careers, but also just having kind of this natural instinct for how organizations have to handle security events, being able to judge severity, and understanding how to present information to people in the heat of the moment, to like important decision makers, and how to just guide people through a workflow. It's less of a technical skill. I would say it's not a technical skill. It's supported by technical knowledge, but it's something that you just have to have an instinct for. It's about, everyone knows what I'm talking about, but it's kind of a hard thing to describe. It's that guy in the room. He may not be a super technical genius, but when something pops off, he will have an idea of what to do. He will be able to like rally the troops, bring them together. He'll prioritize certain things. He'll give these experts a direction, and technical geniuses can have the same kind of instinct too, but it is so hard to find and grow and nurture in people. I would say in my opinion, that's the most important skill.
Yeah, I mean, I approach it from two angles, right? So from a technical skill perspective, it's exposure. Don't limit yourself. Don't go and say, that's not my job. Get as much exposure to as many different things as possible, right? The other day, we had an employee who was looking at a thing. He said, well, that's a storage issue. I don't care about that. Well, you should, because the more you know, the more you can make broader decisions on things, right? So I'd say exposure. You know, I'd say the big thing that you see that lacks in the security community is good communication ability.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know, those interpersonal skills go a long way. So I think work on communication and public speaking, talking to people, you know, that's going to be a big piece these technical guys need to gain.
That was probably the best two answers you guys have ever given me on any question I've ever asked you.
It's all downhill from here.
That was really concise and insightful.
Yeah.
So just to wrap up, actually, all jokes aside, security intuition.
Yep. Just kind of having that instinctive, decisive decision-making ability. It's a lot of gut feeling stuff, kind of intangible, but you know it when people have it.
Yep. Exposure and communication skills. Okay, you heard it, InfoSec guys. Work on those skills. All right, let's jump on to segment two. Jump over to segment two, guys. Let's talk about the news of the week. You guys ready to talk about this?
I'm ready.
Sounds good.
I got a couple for you, and then I want to let you guys give me a couple we've been talking about. So let's start with headline number one. Actually, should we do a sound effect going in the news? Probably, right? We should do a sound effect. Like,
let's just run through them.
should we do that?
Yep. I love it. That's
Sorry,
a good one.
listeners, we have a new sound effect board here, so we should probably do a transition. All right.
I like that one.
You like that one? How about this one?
That's a good. No. Do the old one. Yep.
The one above that one was my favorite.
Oh, sorry, yeah. All right, listeners, on to segment number two.
Did we just get hacked?
You've been hacked. All right, on to segment number two, our news of the week. Headline number one, Microsoft Excel's Power Query feature can be exploited to deploy malware.
No.
So I
Can't believe this news.
I got this from Cyware, who's a kind of an aggregator, but this is originally from Mimecast. And so let me read this quote real quick. Using Power Query, attackers could embed malicious content in a separate data source and then load the content into the spreadsheet when it's open. The malicious code could be used to drop and execute malware that can compromise the user's machine. Sort of a generic comment there, but Power Query is like a, if I understand it right, does it touch the internet when you launch it?
So this goes back to the whole DDE, Dynamic Data Exchange vulnerability of 2017. And I did a lot of study when this came out. This is basically the functionality that allows multiple users to edit something over the network, like on the single spreadsheet. Yeah, if you've ever used Google Drive, or Google Spreadsheets, you know how people can edit multiple things at the same time,
right?
And you can see their edits in real time. This is similar to that. And then the Power Query is an additional feature, but it's more for big like business spreadsheets and
being able to search through lots of data.
It's a query that can bench press a lot.
Yeah. It's like a DJ query.
DJ query.
DJ were a query, it'd be a Power Query.
We should probably clarify, not a DJ like a guy that mixes on a turntable, but DJ, the guy that works here that works out a lot.
I would say that's only a DJ query if it talks the entire time it's, looking for things.
Or texts while he's doing abs. Yeah, for sure.
Anyway,
sorry.
No worries.
Bro, look at my query.
Look at my query.
I always talk about DJ. I love the guy.
It's powerful.
So the basic concept is they're using this to insert malicious code into a spreadsheet and kind of getting around the need to have someone actually click on something twice. So this can reside in there. You can call additional payloads. You can enumerate a host. There's a lot of functionality that's kind of built into Excel, and you can really go very deep into the pre-exploitation phase before you ever drop a payload, and then it's really quite dangerous. And I think the interesting thing is that Microsoft says, well, this is something that can be abused, but it's not technically a vulnerability.
Yeah, they didn't really want to address it.
I feel like that's the generic answer lately. Well, it's not a vulnerability. It's,
This means Mimecast's not going to get a good bug bounty out of this.
Isn't that when DuckDuckGo was like, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
And Mimecast is a great partner of ours, and they find some pretty good stuff sometimes. And
So I wanted to ask you about that. So, again, fairly new to all this, learning about email security and how it works. And the other day you mentioned Mimecast is strong. I mean, what it's able to do.
They're definitely one of the better email protection services out there. We've had great success with those customers that we've implemented Mimecast for.
So when I read this article, it's Mimecast. So I know, we have Mimecast on our company email, so I'm familiar with how it works from a user perspective. When I see Mimecast Threat Center, there was basically a researcher that figured that. So does Mimecast have like a research department, like we have a content team here, that kind of thing?
Just like we do, yeah. You got to stay up on the latest. They probably wouldn't be able to do what they're doing without those people.
Interesting. I didn't know. It makes sense. That's cool. Good for you, Mimecast.
Thanks, Mimecast.
We love you, Mimecast. Thank you.
You're the best.
All right. Anything else to add on that, guys, before we go on to the next article?
I think that malicious actors are going to continue to find ways that they don't have to have people click on things. So there are always going to be these kind of really dangerous exploits where just opening something can be a problem.
I feel like at the end of this, it should say, sponsored by Mimecast. Please call or get a quote for your Mimecast.
Hey, I'll sell you Mimecast. I'm not even a salesperson.
This is the podcast sponsored by Mimecast. Yeah. All right. I messed up that voiceover. All right. On to headline number 2. All right. So the EU to run war games to prepare for Russian and Chinese cyber attacks. Got this off. I know. I got this off theguardian.com. What was funny about not to bash on the Guardian, but the article was about.
Guardian's good.
It's good, but it was about 400 words of an article, and there was 200 words of an infomercial on the Guardian.
That's why they're good, because they're not going to block you from. They don't have paywalls.
Yeah, they were trying to get me to donate.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that is kind of cool.
Go Guardian. It's good reporting.
You gave me a better perspective on it. I appreciate that. So in this article, Pekka Haavisto, who's Finland's foreign prime minister.
Pekka Haavisto.
Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
Sorry. Okay. Said an increase in the prevalence of meddling required prevalence. Yeah,
you got it.
Do I know how to pronounce words?
I don't know.
I think every podcast I mispronounce a word. I don't know if it's because I have a vocabulary issue or disconnect, or I'm getting old. Too many times getting hit in the head. Something.
It's all right. I'm here for you.
Prevalent. Okay. Meddling required a reaction from the 28 member states during meetings in. This I can't pronounce. Helsinki in July and September. The EU Interior and Finance ministers will be asked to manage fictional scenarios.
Yep. Having an exercise. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. To me, it's kind of funny because I think if you look back, and they always do like these NATO exercises or cross-nation military exercises, of course, it's going to start happening with cyber as well. Mm-hmm. Which, I believe is a good thing, when they start practicing and looking at these things. The part I don't get is, why are we all just telling each other this?
Yeah, why do we keep announcing these geopolitical terrorism type things?
Here's just my take on it. This is always happening. They're always doing drills. I came from a DoD background. We were always practicing for certain kinds of things. This is just the one that a journalist got a hold of and decided to write an article about.
Got it.
So I think, to Jeff's point, the thing that really doesn't make sense is when we openly talk about
it's hard out there for a journalist in 2019.
Our capabilities, and telegraphing what we're doing, whether it's for some kind of diplomatic intent or not. It's just, I think
Chris,
that's where we got into
you
a little.
Practice hacking Dave with me?
What does that mean?
We're just going to practice hacking Dave. We're just going to let him know, though, right now on the podcast.
We're going to hack you.
I don't appreciate that.
When you just said it's hard being a journalist, it made me, you sounded like the Dr. Dre from the mid-90s for journalists. It's hard being a gangster out here. It's hard being a journalist. That's how you're kidding.
That was my point.
It's hard being a journalist.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dave, what were you saying? We're going to hack you, by the way.
I forgot.
Keep going.
No, I was just saying, what was I saying?
I don't know.
God damn.
Let me ask you a question. Maybe you can educate me, like you can help me pronounce words correctly. So obviously it's, well, not obviously, but it's Russia and China that they're mad at, who's, by the way, denying everything.
Here's one thing I want to point out too. When you look at military power, right? You go, well, I don't know that Finland has the military power. When it comes to cyber war, it doesn't matter.
Right, it does not matter.
Anybody can hold power in a cyber war. There might be one guy in Antarctica right now who's like the biggest hacker in the world, and he's going to take down everybody. I mean, that's truly the way it works in the cyber world. So, I just thought that was an interesting comment to make. Sorry.
That's cool and terrifying at the same time.
Exactly.
Basically, you just made me think of the movie Hackers, Johnny Mnemonic, and War Games all at the same time. But yes,
I'd watch that.
Combination of the three.
Let's produce a script. I'm in.
That should be a podcast episode where we write our own hybrid hacking
movie script. Okay. Coming up next episode.
Yeah, it could be like an extra long episode where we just crank out a script.
A 10-hour podcast.
It's going to be our new superhero movie where it's like we try to get the Avengers audience based off the fact that we've got these hacking superheroes.
Call it Packet Man.
Packet Man.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, I had a
Log
question.
Woman?
What was my Packet Man and Log Woman?
Worm Lady.
Johnny Sim.
Those are now trademarked. Please don't use those.
Yeah, please don't use those. Okay, so the EU...
Bite Blaster.
Captain Fish.
Captain Fish. I'm going to keep talking to you guys and name another one, aren't you?
We're going to interrupt you as much as possible.
All right.
I'm not going to do it anymore.
So Finland was mad at Russia for blocking GPS signals. Why would they do that?
Disc Boy.
I wouldn't even count that one. Disc Boy, come on.
Why would someone block GPS signals?
Okay, so I can provide some context to this.
Can you now?
Watch me. So Russia and Finland are very close and have a long history of lukewarm relations, including war.
Wait, doesn't everybody? It's kind of like saying the sky's blue. Everyone has lukewarm relations with Russia.
Well, so coming out of the Cold War, there was a lot of it was the predominant belief that Russia would first make a move in the Baltic, which involves like Sweden and Norway and Finland. They're all those Baltic states. And it's always been a big area for the Russian Navy to operate. Like their naval forces and their naval air forces have always been very active there. So just constantly they're kind of like probing those border defenses, and they'll fly like these mock exercises up in those areas, and they'll do these very noisy and brash sorts of military exercises. They'll do like live fire tests, and they'll say, oh, we're going to be doing it on this date, and it'll just create all kinds of havoc in the region. And the jamming of GPS is just another one of these sort of diplomatic moves to try to say, hey, we have this capability, we're doing it right off your front door. It's just a typical Russian intimidation tactic in the region to keep up the belief that they're still relevant. So blocking the GPS signals, I mean, that's capability that many like first world nations have. It's not an uncommon thing, such that like in the U.S., one of the big moves is to get away from GPS as far as like the guidance of bombs and aircraft and that kind of thing. So
if you don't, let me see if I can put this in a layman analogy.
Sure.
If you want to be if you don't like your neighbor and you don't want them getting into your stuff,
right,
you might put a fence up or maybe put up something that says "Beware of dog."
Right.
Beware of dog in your front lawn.
Yeah.
But if this would be like you taking your dog over your neighbor's house and letting that dog shit in his lawn and not picking it up.
It would be like you put an antenna on your dog, and then you aimed him at a satellite dish, and you jammed your neighbor's satellite feed.
Got it.
Cyberdog. Cyberdog. That's it.
That's Cyberdog.
Cyberdog.
That's the one that with Packet Man. Packet Man.
That's
Cyberdog.
the next movie. That's the next big hit.
Yeah.
We'll even triple release it to be in game.
He has a antenna. He has a CB Fire Stick as a tail.
Got to plug it in somewhere.
Okay. on to the next one. This is, for some reason, the new equipment's got us more off the rails than normal, guys.
It's a little distracting, but in a good way.
In a good way.
I like it.
All right. Headline number 3. The DoD contractor cybersecurity certification and 33 new enhanced controls to combat advanced persistent threats. I got this from some kind of law review site. Let me read the quote here. The Department of Defense announced in June 2019, it is in the process of developing a new cybersecurity certification program for its contractors, which will involve using third-party auditors to validate contractor compliance with required security controls. In addition, the National Institute of Standards and Technology released 2 new highly anticipated draft special publications. So is this another government mandate, Dave and Jeff? Is this another, hey, this is what you need to do kind of thing, like the White House thing from a couple of weeks ago? What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, these are just enhancements to the NIST standards.
Yeah, so certifications were always a big deal when I was working in the military and the DoD bubble. And it would always really irritate people when those standards were changed, because a lot of times people will get those certs, they're good for life. At least that's the way it used to be. And then when they started requiring additional certs, that means entire teams have to go and get them. And a lot of times, so for example, CEH, EC Council, they somehow managed to make their certified ethical hacker, again, CEH, that certificate was required for a certain type of role within government IT. And that meant that you had to attend one of the classes or you had to test it. So really, when I see something like this, I think someone whose cert is now the requirement is going to make a boatload of money. That's really what I'm thinking when I see this. Now, I'm not saying the other lateral stuff, like the lateral movement or whatever protections they said they were in there, that's all good stuff. That's probably necessary. But anytime I see certification things, it's just, I just sigh. You know, I know what that's like.
I mean, some of the stuff's pretty standard stuff. Establish and maintain a cyber incident response team that can be deployed to any location identified by the organization within 24 hours. I mean, some of the stuff, they're just trying to put protections in place. So, you know, and some of the stuff is kind of like a no-duh. But it's, you know, standards are there for a reason, to give some people something to follow and something to meet, because not everybody knows what to meet.
Right. I did see in here they referenced cyber fitness. So I know you always say cyber hygiene.
Chris is going to comment on that.
You always say cyber hygiene, Jeff, and I'm like, ooh, cyber fitness. I like this one. This is good.
How many keys can you bench, bro?
400 keys.
I doubt that.
I will show you a video, my friend. All right. Anything else to add on this?
Bench me right now.
Bench me, bro. Oh, well, let's pause the podcast. I'll lay down. You lay on me. I'll bench you. People will walk by and be like, oh, this is what they do during the podcast.
Yep.
All right. So basically, I want to bring this up. We talk about this a lot. Our industry is not going anywhere. The government is continually issuing mandates, more compliance, and more certifications, more requirements that we have to meet. Not just us as a provider, but also the companies that are out there that are storing customer data, privacy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, in my opinion, these types of certification mandates, they don't change anything. You can have these people certified all you want. That doesn't magically make your networks more protected.
Right.
You still have to enforce best practices, good security policies, good security hygiene, good account control. Like certifications, it's just a piece of paper that says very little.
Well, it's sort of like you're a licensed general contractor.
Sure.
Who cares?
What does that even mean?
What does it mean? Anything?
So I'll give you an example. And I worked at a previous organization where they had mandated that all providers needed to be, CCA, cloud security approved vendors, right? Well, all you have to do is fill out the form and say, yeah, you meet these things, and submit it, and then you become a cloud security approved vendor. It doesn't mean your security is any better at all. They're there for guidelines, but it's, you still have to have checks and balances.
Got it. All right, cool. So I wanted to open this up to you guys. Any other news we need to cover? Let's just freeform. Any other news we need to cover for the week that's popping out?
I got one that came across that was interesting earlier off of Dark Reading about the former Equifax CIO who was sent to the prison for insider trading. So,
is that before or after?
Before or after
the breach?
The breach.
The breach.
The moment.
Yes.
Okay.
In March of 2018.
See, was that?
Their breach was in 2017.
Right. Okay.
So he basically informed a colleague of the breach over a messaging platform, and then basically the next day sold, a ton of shares of stock.
Man, the timeline's getting foggy now. So did they got breached in 2017, but we didn't know about it until 2018. That was the circumstance, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Equifax disclosed the breach in September of 2017.
So they did disclose it. So I don't understand.
They had been breached in August of 2018. No, this is when they charged him for it.
Oh, okay. So they charged him in 2018.
Yeah.
How is it just now?
So on August 25th of 2017, the article says.
Okay.
How's it just now coming out? Why is it
Yeah.
taking so long to pop up on the radar? On
Well, the
news
crazy
cycle?
part is he sold and received shares of $950,000. He realized the gain of $480,000, avoiding a loss of $117,000. To me, that doesn't feel like it's worth going to jail and, becoming
What was this guy's position in the company?
CIO.
CIO. Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're the CIO
He's the
of
second employee to be found guilty.
it was multiple people that wanted to bail. I feel like if you're the CIO of Equifax, you probably earn a pretty decent salary.
That doesn't seem like a lot of money for the CIO
Yeah.
of Equifax. Yeah.
And
So
it's
that's what
definitely not enough money to go to jail for.
I feel
Right.
like insider trading is always in the millions. You always hear about it. They got millions out of it.
How much did Martha Stewart get?
That's a good question.
Good question. Let me look it
I
up.
bet Snoop Dogg probably knows, doesn't he?
Snoop Dogg?
Snoop Dogg probably knows.
Was he in on that?
No, haven't you seen their TV show?
They had a TV show,
Martha and Snoop
podcast?
Dogg had a TV show.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, they cook together. Pretty sure they smoke
they
illegal
cooking
drugs
edibles up in
together,
there or
too.
something?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm pretty sure they do that as well.
Really?
Martha Stewart's off.
Is this
off
on
the-
Hulu or something? Or
I don't know.
I need to find this.
Yeah.
I need to enrich myself.
So their show is on VH1. Martha and Snoop's Potluck Party.
I wouldn't even know where to find that these days.
Potluck party. Remember VH1?
Unless that's something different. But
They're behind-
Does
they're
VH1 have a streaming service?
Remember behind the music?
yeah,
Yeah, that was
33 episodes, man, 3 seasons.
Wow.
VH1 was actually like one of the better music channels.
She is
like
truly gangster.
when I was a teenager.
It was great. Behind the music was by far my most favorite, probably show of the time.
So VH1 Live is a real thing.
Yeah.
Streaming service.
Everybody's got a stream. This is becoming the reverse problem. Before you had to pay all these companies a ton of money for cable and satellite. Now you're gonna have to pay $40 billion.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Actually, now that we're getting off the rails, anyways, streaming services. Is there a cyber risk there? I mean, what do they have to protect, or they're obviously billing customer data. Is it just a PCI DSS?
It's just
thing?
like anything else. They've got some gigantic database of customer data that resides in some data center or some AWS or Azure cloud.
Yeah, I don't know that they're necessarily concerned about the media themselves. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you saw that article. I think it was sometime this week about NBC, launching their own service. So they wanted to get The Office off of Netflix.
Yeah, 2021, it's coming off Netflix.
It's a ridiculous amount of money that they give Netflix to have, they
give
get
The Office
on there
Yeah.
from Netflix.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean,
To your question, though, I think they probably are concerned by the
Piracy.
But piracy,
Yeah.
but HBO, I mean, they were like the poster child for being the company that got pirated when Game of Thrones. Every season, people would just pirate that, or episodes would leak out early. I mean,
well, most piracy with TV and movies is one dude buys it, dude or gal buys it, and then they rip it, right? And then they share it. But I mean, could a hacker get in and just pull all the files?
yeah. So that's the thing that always intrigued me when I would see like on the subreddit for Game of Thrones, the thing leaked hours before. I just don't understand how is that happening?
How are they getting it? Do they hack in and it's Game of Thrones.mp4?
Yeah, it's like someone have this backdoor into the server they host all those things on before they stream them, and then they're just pulling it from there. It just doesn't make any sense.
Could be simple as a employees version,
Or that, yeah.
or
That's usually what it is with the movies. They get the screeners and then somebody rips it and puts it up.
Right.
But let's be honest. I mean, this probably dates me, but back to the old, whereas days and different things. But the majority of the people who rip that stuff, they were never going to pay for it anyway, right?
For sure.
They were going to wait until they could get it borrowed or free from somebody else. So, there's been a lot of lawsuits and different things over media over the years, but I truly don't believe that they really were going to gain that much off of these people.
That was my hope with, we talked about Bitcoin, or what was it? What was Facebook's cryptocurrency last week?
Oh, Libra. Yeah.
That was my hope with crypto, with Bitcoin and Litecoin, was that content creators could get, because if I want to buy a music album, right, it's $12, and it might suck. I might not like it. I might hear one song and be like, oh, this is pretty cool. Let me check these guys out. And I got to drop 12 bones. I mean, 12 bones isn't a lot, but if you're a kid, it's a lot. And also too, what if it sucks? Well, if I could pay, a penny to try them out for a certain period of time, per song or whatever, I don't know what the right number is, but the problem with our current processing system is it costs, if you pay them $12, they got to pay what X percent out in credit card processing fees and the iTunes fees and all that. With crypto, you could do a costless transaction was kind of the hope for me.
Nothing's ever costless though, because then you got to have someone store that data. I mean,
It's true.
it never is completely costless.
Well, and to me, it's like, I don't know the music industry really, but you go back and look, it's like, I don't know anybody who pays for music anymore. It's like you listen to free stuff on SoundCloud, or you pay, Google or iTunes, $10-15 a month, and you just stream everything.
Yeah, not to be that guy, but I do pay for music. I'll pay for it, and then I'll download it, and then I'll save it, because in the event that streaming service is gone, then where does all your stuff go? Like, look at the Microsoft music service. I forget what it is. It just shut down. I'm sorry.
Zoom? Yeah.
Yeah. That just went away.
Remember
recently.
when that guy had his name changed to Microsoft Zoom?
No, what?
Yeah, he got paid a bunch of money to change his name to Microsoft Zoom.
His first name was Microsoft, his last name was Zoom?
Yeah, something like that.
Anyway,
That's
same thing with
ridiculous.
Microsoft's audiobook service. People would pay for audiobooks on there, and then when that goes away, I mean, if you don't have an option to download your audiobooks, then you just threw your money away. So that's why I still pay for music anyway. Tangent, sorry.
I do also pay for music, some music, but I usually do the Bandcamp route for like the smaller bands, and I'll throw them like $5 for their album or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a difference between donating on something to them and buying an album.
Yeah.
All right. Any other good news stories of the week, guys?
On your costless transaction, there was an interesting one of 9.3 million Ripple coins and 2.5 million Cardano coins stolen from BitTrue.
There's a million cryptocurrencies. There's a ton of them.
I realize we're in the wrong business. Let's just create a cryptocurrency.
Let's create our own blockchain.
Yep.
Anything from you, Dave? You see anything cool out there?
Yeah, I did want to briefly mention, of course, we're taking it serious again. Report shows failures at 8 U.S. agencies in the following cybersecurity protocols.
Where's this from? What website?
This is on ZDNet, an article that I believe was written by probably somebody else. Anyway, the Department of State, Department of Transportation, Department of Housing and Urban Development, Department of Agriculture, Health and Human Services, Education, the Social Security Administration, and the Department of Homeland Security. The same people who are busy writing blue keep vulnerabilities probably should have been spending some more time checking their own crap. But yeah, I don't doubt it one bit. I was in the middle of the gigantic Office of Personnel Management breach. My information is probably public knowledge in various adversary states.
Guess we don't have to hack them very hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty easy.
And just talk to the government. They'll give it to you.
Some Googling.
Yeah.
All right.
I just think it's dismal that we're this far behind and we still cannot solve these problems. So, Health and Human Services, some weaknesses were identified a decade ago. Others outstanding at least 10 years, outstanding at least 5 years. Agriculture, cybersecurity issues persisted for as long as 10 years. Social Security Administration has cybersecurity issues, risking the exposure of personal information of 60 million Americans who receive Social Security benefits. So, yeah. I'm sure those certifications and that big push to get everybody with that piece of paper is going to help a bunch.
They just got to call DHS and get a pen test.
Yep.
For those listeners, Dave just looked at me with a sarcastic face. He was being sarcastic.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Do we have time to talk about the anatomy of ransomware? We want to go through the steps real quick?
Do we?
Do we? Save it for another show?
No, we can go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it real quick. So I got this article popped up when I was looking at the news this week. This is from helpnetsecurity.com. Chris, can't pronounce his last name here, he kind of did this article and he walked through the anatomy of a ransomware attack. And I just wanted to read off, if you guys want to check it out, go check out helpnetsecurity.com. But I wanted to kind of read off the 6 steps and have you guys break it down. So actually read a stat here too. Shockingly, 77% of companies infected were running up-to-the-date endpoint protection, which tells us that the problem lies somewhere else, human error. Loose passwords and lax authentication protocols all contribute to higher risk. So this is the steps he goes through. Step 1, identify a vulnerable network using sophisticated tools to detect and probe network for lax security protocols, unpatched software, or single-factor authentication. Is that step one?
I wouldn't say so. I would say send an email to a dumb person.
Yeah,
Fish somebody.
Looking at his steps here, I 100% agree with him that these are steps you could take. I don't think they're this complicated in most cases.
So the typical scenarios that I've heard, yes, some are definitely targeted. That is absolutely a thing where there are more elaborate
Spear phishing
planning steps that go into this. You know, a network is actively infiltrated before that ransomware is implanted and then detonated. But I feel like the majority of breaches that I read about, especially when it comes to like city governments and hospitals, like these were people that just got hit in a random malware campaign, got infected, and then the guys on the other end of the line were like, oh wow, we just made it big when this hospital got blown up by ransomware, and now we're going to contact them, we're going to extort them for like $50,000, and that's going to be it.
Or in the case of the Lake City of Florida, they paid $480,000, 42 bitcoins.
Right.
Jeez. So step one. So I'm with you guys. So it's maybe not as complicated.
Yeah. So I would say this was maybe indicative of like the Norsk Hydro situation where that organization was definitely targeted, and then they fell prey to a more advanced operation.
Okay. I want to ask you guys, so about step two. So he goes into step two after identifying the vulnerable spots. He goes, scrape, use your password off the dark web. There are billions available. So when I went and listened to the talk at Rocky Mountain, RMISC, Mike Marriott from Digital Shadows was walking through some of this dark web stuff, and I was amazed at the process that these guys go through. I mean, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago about my passwords getting jacked for all my gaming stuff.
Yeah.
Stop using 123.
Well,
Or password.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they do that, and then they use a third-party site to verify the stolen password, check against data on common social media on a common social media site such as LinkedIn. So they make sure they check for the user.
Next time you go after Chris, make sure you try fitness. That's his password.
Yeah.
Love. What was it? What was the movie Hackers where it's like he's like, God loves sex. These are the most common. Remember what's his name? The bad guy.
I don't remember his name, but
You know what I'm talking about. He was the guy. He was also in Short Circuit. Remember Short Circuit?
wasn't he the bad guy in Short Circuit?
I forgot about that movie. We used to rock that on the beta.
The movie was great.
You ever seen Short Circuit, Dave?
Yep.
I think every single episode we're going to talk about movies in some way. We love
Movies are great.
Movies are great. Okay. So check the password on a third-party site. Obfuscate. Is that how you say that?
Obfuscate.
Obfuscate. Okay. Their location. This has been the vocabulary portion of the show. Their location by logging in via 50+ worldwide proxies. What does that mean?
I mean, just redirecting traffic, make it look like they're coming from Iran when they're actually sitting in, I don't know, Miami.
Got it. Okay. Step 5, pull down your proprietary data, encrypt it, and spread it across the blockchain and data centers across the globe. Yep.
Sure.
And then demand thousands of dollars. So,
I mean, I feel like that's an interesting step. Pull down your proprietary data, encrypt it, and spread it across the blockchain in data centers across the globe. That is not the typical scenario, because if I have the data, then I already have something more valuable. I would rather just sell the data to a nation state or an intelligence service or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, this article was written by a data data company, storage company. So,
they may have a slightly different
perspective on it, which, it happens. But I think the key thing here is it's usually a lot more simple than this. I mean, the ones we see are so simple, it's silly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I did notice in this article, he did say data hygiene.
I also would point out number 6, don't demand thousands, demand millions.
$1 million. All right, guys, anything else to talk about this week, or are we good to go?
I feel like we should talk about something else. I don't know what, though.
What else we talk about?
I feel like we ended on a whimper.
We did kind of end on a whimper.
Wah, wah. Oh, play the sound effect. There you go. Took it 2 tries, but we got it.
Nice.
We'll end on an up note. So we have some guests coming in pretty soon, right, Jeff?
Yeah, what do we got coming up?
Sure.
Putting you on the spot
interviewing
here.
guest Jeff Marshall.
We do,
know?
guys. We appreciate you tuning in with us. We do have some exciting guests coming up. We have the new podcast studio going. Next week's going to be episode 10. We're going to make it the best 10th episode we've ever done.
Every episode is the best version of that episode we've ever done.
It's true.
But is it a clone of the last episode?
No, we don't want to clone ourselves.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. All right, guys, all joking aside, we appreciate you tuning back in. And this has been Chris, Jeff, and Dave, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
What else you got on there?
Thank you for listening to the Hashtime Show. Check us out online at hashtimeshow.com.
Only on Tuesdays.